mountains and things. Look at that.
Oh.
Because we haven't recorded. It feels like we've only been gone like a week, but it feels like
Yeah, it was just we just skipped last week because you were doing corn
we
stars.
did corn stars, but we didn't do snakes and stogies this week because Phil was up in Asheville. So no snakes and stogies this week. So it's been kind of an odd week because it was like Sunday, and I was like, Phil's posting pictures of them up in the mountains, and I'm like, so I'm assuming we're not going to record tomorrow. And he's like, yeah, I don't think we'll be back in time. I'm like,
rightfully so. My man
like
got it. My man got all engaged.
He did.
So we're very happy for Phil. Rightfully so. He missed.
He didn't tell me that was going to happen or anything like that. So I was just as surprised as everybody else. But it's awesome. So.
Yeah, no, that was fantastic, man. I was super happy to see that. I knew it was going to happen as soon as I saw them together, man. I was like, oh, they're perfect. Like, they're perfect.
She fits in with the gang very well.
Very well. Very, very well. We love Anna Maria.
And this is episode 178 of the Herpeticulture Podcast, which is brought to you by BlackBoxCages.com. Check them out. Facebook, Instagram. They have a YouTube channel. I need to talk to Jen about that because I did some videos of the Aki build and stuff that were going to go up there. And I don't know what the status is of that. But either way, you need a rack, you need a cage. Whether you're anti-rack, whether you're pro cage, whether you're anti-cage, pro rack, they don't discriminate.
No, they don't.
Just
you
get
can get it all. If you're anti-rack, just get a cage. They got big cages, they got small cages. They can fit all your needs. All your pretty little needs for whatever you need.
White PVC, black PVC, casters, dollies.
You can get LED lights. Panels. You can get UVB lights. You can get heat lights. You can get heat panels. Whatever you want.
Whatever your little heart desires, as long as it's not too weird.
BlackBox can provide.
That's right. So check them out. And then, if you like hot sauce, Steve Snaketuary and his Venom hot sauce. Yeah. We talk about all the time. Cottonmouth sauce, that's where it's at. I really do need to get me a bottle of it because I was eating we had some like grilled chicken the other night, and I was like, man, if I had some of that and just top it off just right.
Yep. So if you like snakes and you like hot sauce, Steve Snaketuary is where it's at, man.
And even more importantly, if you like helping someone who is helping snakes and other reptiles via public education, rehabilitation, he does rescues, like he takes in animals, relocates, and
he's also a first responder.
He is a first responder, so what's not to like? He's a good dude. So check him out, SteveSnaketuary.com.
Yep.
And this week, there's a funny story as to how we got Sir Michael Pennell on here. We had in the group chat the other night, Brendan Meyer posted a picture of one of the red coastals he has for sale on Morph Market right now. And it's one of like 2 or 3 on there that are just absolutely insane.
Dude, that thing's freaking dumb, dude.
But I was like, you know what? I was like, we've been meaning to have Michael on for years.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it since the beginning.
Like, I'm gonna message him right now, and I did, and he was down, and so here we are, joined by the man himself, Michael Pennell.
The one, the only.
That's right.
Yes, sir. Glad to be in this evening.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. I am very excited for this episode. I think it's gonna be a banger, as us millennials like to say.
As the hip cool kids say.
Yeah. No.
I know, so we'll definitely sort of talk about those reds and stuff a little bit, but I think where Jake and I are extra curious is sort of your history with Popwins. Because years ago, this was like
back in the day,
2013, 2014, I had a pair that were your line. I got them from someone that got them from you. And those things were, I wish I had known then what I know now, because I would not have gotten rid of them, because those things were just unfreaking believable. Just purple.
Yep.
So we can get into that a little bit. I guess if there's anybody that isn't in the loop in terms of, who you are and what you do, we can sort of do the Cliff Notes version of all that and sort of jump right into it. But what are you currently focused on and doing?
Well, just for those that may be new and don't know me, my name's Michael Pennell, owner and CEO, poop cleaner of Python and Pear Tree. Been breeding for about 22 years now. Probably 24, but more successful for 22. Yeah, that whole incubation egg stuff. And before we did incubators, it was the hoverbator that didn't work real well. So you learn, you live and learn and go on.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I've been breeding for about 22 years. Had a love for carpets from the get-go. I've had them. One of the first successful clutches I ever produced was coastal carpet python. So been kind of rocking with those for a long time. Matter of fact, still have one of my original first hatchling females from 2002. Still have her.
Wow.
Doing good. She's not as productive as I would like, but she is 20-something years old. So glad to just still have her in a rack or in a cage. And funny story, when my wife and I were dating, before we got married, I actually was in a little small 2-bedroom house, and I had most all my snakes in one bedroom. Then I had 4 snake cages in my bedroom with an old refrigerator that was an incubator. And one of them was this female. And whenever she would walk in the room, the snake would always kind of follow her and eyeball her. And she said, it's either me or that snake. And I said, well, I've produced that snake and I've known her longer. So she
Checkmate.
and turns out she still married me anyway. And I have both of them to this day. So
there you go, man. That's honestly, that's incredible, man. I still have, that's where I hope to be. I still have the very first snake I ever produced, which is a poplin carpet. She was the first one out of the egg, so I consider her the very first animal, and she's the only one I actually still have from that clutch. And
I think for old time's sake, we could just call them
day
IJs this entire episode.
we can do that. Whatever.
yeah. I know we're going to get into it a little bit further, but the new nomenclature, I just kind of looked over, saw the big thread about it yesterday, so I'm kind of up to speed on it. But yeah, we're so used to calling certain things one. Most people still call green tree pythons chondros, even though that name hadn't been around. You just get stuck into your old ways, so it'd be a little hard, but I think we can kind of muddle our way through.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing is, a common name is a common name, and it is what it is. I say poplin solely out of habit at this point, but I'm not the guy who says IJ. I say IJ just to kind of coincide with what they say.
Yeah, you
But
kind of
at the end of the day, we
basis where you're kind of like, they're saying IJ, so I'm gonna roll with that. And it's like, if they stick with poplin, it's like, okay, then they're poplins. But
at the end of the day, we all know what we're talking about,
right?
So that's all that matters.
Well, it used to be in the old days, as long as you used the Latin nomenclature, everybody would know. But since they're changing all this, went from subspecies to species, now back to a subspecies, and jungles are really now coastals, and yeah, it's going to take a little getting used to on that one.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah, all the fights we used to have back in the old Morelia Pythons forum days of Pear versus Mutts and Designer and all that kind of stuff, and to think jungle's just a locality of coastal carpet python.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Julander himself was like, "Look, this isn't like an official revision by any means. This is just our suggestion for what we think things should be." But
yeah, because it also came from like the genetic makeup of them, because at the end of the day, that's what you have to look at, the genetics behind them, and that's what it came down to. There's really no difference other than the section of Australia that they came from, and it's
well, the more I read and see taxonomy change, the more I realize just how subjective it all is. Like for a field in science, there's a lot of gray area in terms of how it works and what counts as legit versus not.
Mhm.
And I don't know, that just feels wrong, being that it's a science or considered a science, but it doesn't seem to want to follow any of the rules that all the other sciences follow, where you have to have legitimate proof. And
Yeah.
I don't know. And where people can just be like, yeah, I'm not buying that. I'm still going to call them what I want to call them. And which is whatever, people would do that regardless, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's wild.
That's the American way.
It's a complete free for all.
I mean, I understand some of the change, but it's, what you can visibly see. A jungle is visibly different. Why is it kind of like, I think I saw Nick was saying that Rockhampton locality coastal and a jungle are the same thing. They're northern coastals. They're just, a tropical forest habitat versus. So I also do white-sided black rat snakes. And so anybody who's followed that, it used to be, well, they changed it to Pantherophis, but it was obsoleta. Well, now they've changed it where the black rat snake and the Texas rat snake are the same thing.
Yeah.
I've flown with Texas rat snakes, and they'll light you up. Black rat snakes are not like that. The head structure is different. I mean, what I can see should have a lot of play versus let me get down to the mitochondria that I can't see. And really, but I mean, I know when I was in school, which is ages ago, seems like, it used to be where you couldn't cross species. They would be sterile. So when we were doing, or, people would do jungles to diamonds, and it's supposed to be separate species or subspecies, and they're producing viable offspring. Well, that just says, okay, something's not right. And, with the way the taxonomy was. And so now they've changed it again and again. And I mean, I think they got one paper that's, I don't think it's peer reviewed, but I think they're trying to say children's and Stimson's are the same thing.
Yeah. There's
I got both of them, and they're different.
Everything's children eye apparently now, but
well, that's the way it all started. It was all children eye, and then they broke it into 4 different, the pygmy, anthill, spotted, Stimson's, and children's, and now children's, Stimson's, same thing. And it's, I don't know, I've got both, and I don't see it, but I'm not a scientist. I'm just a breeder.
Right.
Yeah, and all this is exactly why. So I work with a bunch of different locality rat snakes, and like literally, this is why, especially when it comes to rat snakes. You brought up the Texas rats and the black rats. I use color phase and I use where it's from to distinguish, and that's it. If it's a gray rat, it's a gray rat, and it's from this county in Florida. Or if it's a yellow rat from South Florida, it's a yellow rat from South Florida. If I have county information, then I have county information, then I'll supply that. But that's it, like I don't get into all the scientific names and all that, because they're all jumbled together. Everything's Eastern rat snakes now, so, it is what it is. So that's why, for me, it's easiest to distinguish it that way. There's no confusion. This is a gray rat from Santa Rosa County, Florida. That's it. Like.
Well, and the funny thing too is, especially with like Morelia and species that aren't native to the U.S. or even native to our particular area, like the Bairds and stuff. Like even if they reclassify Bairds, that's not going to change the way I keep them or do anything about it. It's just like it's because we require a label on everything in some capacity. And I get it too, because I'm also one of those guys where it's like, I don't want rhino rats to be in Gonyosoma. I've said that a million times. It doesn't make any sense to me. They must have had Stevie Wonder looking at those snakes and saying, yeah, it's Gonyosoma, all right. Like, I don't get it. And I won't consider them Gonyosoma because I don't feel that it makes any sense. But I'm also not the one out there doing the footwork or lack thereof for that particular study to really say one way or the other. But it's just, I don't know. It's so fluid, and like I said, there's so much gray area and subjectivity that at this point, like I hear revisions and stuff like that, I'm like, sure, whatever, it is what it is.
Yep.
As long as it's not Hoser, I think we'll probably be okay.
I think everyone can agree on that.
There it is.
No doubt there.
Yeah.
No one's gonna argue that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe if we were a friend of his, we might have a snake named after us. So, that might have a benefit.
Hey, yeah.
Living in, perpetuity.
I know this is kind of a sidebar, but bringing that up, I will never forget on the one of the Popwin carpet pages on Facebook, somebody posted something about it, not being what it is.
Am I frozen? Is Jake frozen? Jake's frozen.
I think Jake's frozen.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if it was just both of you.
Nope.
Yeah. I don't know. That's there's plenty of entertainment value there in that one.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of those types where you just kind of laugh and get a chuckle and say, "Okay, buddy," just keep walking.
Well, I mean, if nothing else, it makes the hobby interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, if we got one guy we can all dislike, or at least laugh at, then I think we can get by with it,
Yeah, and he's one of those types where there's a handful of other ones too that I've noticed, that I can't think of directly off the top of my head, but it's like their message and stuff may be accurate, their points may be valid, but because they're so horrible on the delivery and their reaction to people's reaction to their delivery, it's all wasted.
Mm-hmm.
Like he could be he could be dead on with a lot of that stuff, but because of how uppity he gets and how crazy
Yeah,
the comment section gets, it's like no one's gonna get on board with that, man. Like,
Sorry, I don't know what just happened.
You froze up.
Yeah, my phone just decided to restart out of nowhere.
Nice.
Uh-oh.
So technology at its finest.
Popwin group.
Yeah, no, just Hoser just coming in with his silly crap, man. He's always, I don't think it was Poplin specifically, but he had a freaking aneurysm when somebody said these aren't Harris and I. And then he said, no, it was, I think he said it was the Boellen's python. He said it was something else that he like named himself. And I was like, Hoserentius or some crap like that.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was just like, dude, screw off.
Don't you dare touch those.
It was
hands off of them.
Yeah, it's laughable, but
do what you will with the carpets, but leave the Bolins alone.
Not even that, man. Like I don't even refer to Popwin carpets as that anymore after I found out he's the one who named them. Like now.
They're just Darwins.
Yeah. They're carpet pythons from Papua New Guinea. That's it.
Yep.
That's all I have to say about that.
Yes, they are.
So what you having your history with coastals, like, and I don't want to recap too much as far as what you've talked about on previous NPR episodes and stuff, but like why coastals in particular? Why has that been such a heavy focus with the carpet stuff?
Okay. I mean, valid question. Man, I want to say it's probably been 2008, 2007, something like that. It's been ages ago, seems like. I had a pair of VPI line jungles. I had the coastals. And just as you start producing and you start looking at the market and, the VPIs, some of the original stock would get the black melanin creeping in on the yellow bands. Mm-hmm. And about this time, there was Gordon Shoot Line and some of these other ones that were staying bright yellow, really bold and black. And so I kind of stepped back and said, if you look at wild jungle carpets from Australia, they don't look like what we have here.
Right.
No.
And it was, if somebody would focus and selectively breed coastals like we've done jungles for the last 20, 30 years, we could get some really nice coastals. And so, I took that, went ahead and sold my jungles off and just focused on doing coastals and then the Popwin carpets. Got into reds. I had a friend of mine that was a Burmese breeder, Jim Mason. And we used to do shows and stuff together, kind of started up about the same time. And we would always be looking for, other animal stuff. We were, looking project wise, and I knew what he had available. So if there was something I liked and they wanted Burmese, I would use his stuff for trade bait, and then him and I'd work it out later, and vice versa with my carpets and everything else. Well, he come across a red coastal and traded some stuff. He thought he might want to try to do it, and he's like, "No, I'm just gonna give this to Michael." And so I wound up acquiring that red coastal, and just been producing some red coastals from that. Wound up selling the original male off probably 9 years ago. Got several of his offspring, males and females, and just through selective breeding have been able to produce some really nice red coastals. And it's just off a separate line. I know Eric's been very successful on his red coastals from the Madame Blueberry line, and I have a Madame Blueberry from him. And looking at the two, they're different. I don't know what it is, but they're just different. There's like a difference between an orange and a red. The colors in them and the way the contrast and the colors just work. You're like, okay, this is a Madame Blueberry line. This is my red line.
Right.
And just kind of been focusing on that. And then a couple of years back when I was able to get a hold of some locality coastals, so I got the Rockhamptons and Brisbanes. In both cases, one of the first 3 people in the United States to actually have those was nice. To be able to get those, start working with them and producing them. And just been focusing with coastals a lot. And it has to be mentioned, the Jaguar. I worked with Jaguar for a while. But with working with my projects, I decided Jaguar was just one I would part with. I got to the point where I was producing super caramel Jags and stuff like that, and you're selling something for $800 to $1,000, and this thing is going to wig out at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And not to say that they all will, but it's inherent with the gene.
Mm-hmm.
All it takes is that one stimulus to hit that causes it to manifest itself. Spider balls are the same way. So I parted with the spider balls. I parted with all the Jaguars. I've seen some really nice animals with them. It's just something I chose not to work with. I've got friends that have them. It's just, I just said, I'm going to focus on, my coastals, and, I can get some really nice reduced patterns that's almost Jag-like.
Right.
Kind of like if you guys have been around for a little while, you remember when the Jaguar first popped up in Australia, they couldn't say it was a Jaguar. So they called them RPPs, Reduced Pattern Prospering Coastals.
Oh, wow.
If you look back at some of the old forums, that's what because they couldn't say it was Jaguar, because that was one of those best kept worst secrets of how things exchanged. And Jaguar wound up in Australia. And so they called them, now you look and they call them Jags. There's no doubt about it, because everybody's like, what is a head wobble? Like, yeah. So, they weren't reduced pattern prospering coastals, but they had to, say that to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Did your opinion, like your feelings on Jag, sort of shift over time? Because it does definitely seem like a very large majority of the carpet community is kind of like it had its time, and it had its popularity, and then it seems like within the last, I don't know, 10-ish years, maybe less than that, it seems like people have had the same feelings on it now. It's almost unanimous. Everyone's kind of like, yeah, it's just doesn't do it for me anymore. It's it's people don't like the neuro thing. They don't want to produce any more of that. Similar to what you just said. It just wasn't. You kind of fall out of favor with it, I guess.
Yeah, and I seen that. I actually got my first ones from Matt Brock, and they were grandkids of Will Leary's Benjamin. Through Matt's was Thankful, which was the son of Benjamin. Mm-hmm. And got some really nice. I got a nice red one and red Jag, and then 2 normals. Raised them up and was producing. And I think the red Jaguar, it was 5 years before she showed any signs.
Oh,
Like
wow.
she was
Really?
doing great, no problems. Cool her down for, cool down for breeding the next season, and then it triggered, and she kind of got a little corkscrewy. And when she laid a clutch of eggs and laid them all over the cage and spread them around, I said, it's time for you to go. Sold her off as a pet. And at that time, I was like, you know what? I've got these nice Jaguars, and it's like I'd got a caramel Jag from Nick and was producing with it. And I just didn't feel comfortable doing it anymore. Not that there's anything wrong with the snake. I mean, I don't think I really ever got bit by a jaguar carpet. They were
Jake
really
has.
pretty well laid
Yeah,
back.
I was about to say I definitely have.
Jake had that one from Owen that was just
Dude, and that's honestly that animal, because like when you first get into carpets, Jaguar's kind of that, if you're into the morph scene, Jaguar, at least, as of, 5, 6, 7 years ago, Jaguar's kind of that introductory morph.
Yes,
You know what I
yes.
mean? Like, it's the first morph that you'll probably get. It's affordable. It's beautiful.
well, it's that
You
more
know?
like you can just hide into things. It just does cool. It's
Yeah,
that little dash that just does neat
and I
things.
remember, and it does a lot, and that's the thing. And I remember when I first saw, a picture before I knew anything about, the neuro problems with them. I saw a picture of a Jaguar, and it immediately became my phone screensaver. Like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And with time, I got a Jag, and then I learned about the neuro things, and I'm like, okay, the one I've got isn't so bad. I got a few more. Michael, I even had one from you that I got from you at that show in 2016 when I met you.
Okay.
That it moved on to a friend to become a pet because I became or I got out of the Jag scene. But I had several that were fine. At least they appeared to be at the time. The first Jag I got was a 50-50 IJ Jag. And he was a little, you could tell he got a little wobbly when he came up, but he was okay for the most part. But that one Jag that has to this day given me the worst non-venomous bite I have ever taken from any snake. That's really what changed it for me, because that animal was ridiculous. I mean, it didn't know right side from upside from upside down. Like, it was insane. It didn't know what was food and what wasn't. It wasn't a mean snake. It just literally thought every single thing that touched it was food. And it was constantly corkscrewing, and I was like, I can't do anything with this. Like, I can't rightfully reproduce this animal. There's a lot of Jags that will go from babies to adults and realistically not have many problems at all. But there are that select few that you very could produce from that one animal that is perfectly fine, could produce one that is just off its friggin' rocker. And and again, this isn't talking bad about people that still produce Jags, because there's still quite a few people that work with Jags, and
Oh yeah.
and there's nothing against those people. It was just one of those things. Mainly, what's that?
The stuff Martin's doing.
Yeah, it's they're insane, and it's nothing against those people. And if you want to work with them, that's perfectly fine, because it's very evident that Jaguars can be fine animals, through and through, but it's and again, mostly it became because I got out of morphs all together. I don't think I own a single morph in my collection now, including Coluber. No, I have albino pines. That's it. Like, I have albino pine snakes. Those are the only morphs I own in my collection now, and that was just, a personal choice. But, the Jags were the first ones to go once I started, kind of going down that route. And
Well, those IJ Jags you had, though, were...
Yeah, I had a 93% IJ Jag that was just out of this world.
Screaming yellow.
Very nice snake.
Screaming yellow. Oh my!
I was sad when you
goodness
got rid of that one.
Yeah, that was.
I don't even have any interest in like breeding carpets or having any of the morphs, but I was like, that's eye candy.
Yeah, that thing was stupid, but that just came with the territory. Like you said, Michael, it's all it takes is that one breeding session, that one cool down, that one weird feeding, and all of a sudden it just triggers that Nido, or not that Nido, that neuro
yeah.
problems, and it's done from there, and I wouldn't trust, certain jags that act that way to even go into with another snake in fear that they would think it's food, like I said, that one snake really screwed me up when it came to jags, man, and
Drew a lot of blood.
it did. That was a really bad bite. That was the day I took it out of the bag once it got to my house from shipping.
Wow.
Lord have mercy.
Is it the same with spider balls where you
Yes.
won't see any issues, but then for whatever reason, maybe 3 years down the line, whatever, it starts having problems? Is it the same?
You can have, now I've done, since I bred both, you can have sometimes just being born, the stress of being born, cutting out the egg, they're already neuro. I had a spider that was that way one time, and then I had produced maybe 1, maybe 2 jaguars that were that way, but most of them seemed fine.
Yeah.
Being with the way the market is right now, I see a lot more with the spider stuff. Like you'll be at shows and somebody was, somebody like, oh, I had a friend that had a killer spider blade clown, breeder male, like just a pinstripe down the back, all the way down, clean looking animal, but it had spider. People were looking at it and goes, oh, that's spider. And they'd keep going. Like that one is like completely, but then you have those same people, other ones that just love it. Whatever it is, spider, they want. And that's fine. There's, it's, to each his own.
Yeah.
I normally vend shows. Lately I've got, my friend Paul Mobel, who's originally from France. He does what I call designer carpets. So he's got the IJ, zebra, caramel, jag, het albino type stuff. And, if you look at the way we used to be in the forum days, like that would have been my arch enemy.
Yeah.
But, my wife even asked, she said, why do you have like competition on your table? I said, honestly, he's not. I have pure stuff. And he does have some pure stuff too. He actually produced some really nice red coastals, babies that he bought from me that grew up and produced. But then he has designers. And so, you have somebody who's wanting a carpet. Some people just want to look. They don't care if it's this particular locality or if it's this or that.
Pretty snake.
That IJ Jag is a perfect example. Yeah. Those things were screaming yellow. Jungle and IJ Jags, the higher percentage scream. So when you're looking for a look, then it really doesn't matter what it is. So you want the designer. Same thing go with green tree pythons. It's hard to beat cygnus.
Yeah.
It's
real hard to beat.
that's crazy. It's not a pure locality, whatever, but that thing was crazy. When you get to see it in person, that it's just makes you sick, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny that Chondro's kind of got a pass on all that, and I think it's because they had so many of them look so good that it was like, okay, whatever. Nobody cares. They were just wanting to make really cool looking green tree pythons.
Well, I think on the flip side of that, is they still use a pedigree. Even if it's mixed blood, they still keep a pedigree back, like great grandparents.
Yeah.
Back from Trooper Walsh and stuff like that, that you can trace it back 20 plus years. So even if it's a mutt, crossbreed, whatever, it still has an ancestry on it and a pedigree. And so it's acceptable.
Right.
I've got chondros where I went back and dug up as much background and generational linkage and photos and stuff as I could, and some of it, it goes back 5 generations at least. It's just wild.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I think it's also really cool to see that stuff too. To see, one of the female that I have from David Brahms that came from some signal herp bloodlines and stuff. To have that is really cool. I didn't know Rico. I never talked to him. I was just familiar with him by name. But to like have that and see like that's there, it still exists. I think it's really cool.
some of his hard work went into that animal somewhere back. Yeah, that's really neat. As far as the Papuan carpets, I know we talked about that. I had a small group. Might have just had a pair back then, and I had produced some nice ones. And what was his name?
Was that like the time where IJs were kind of looked at as sort of like the flea market
trash carpets?
Well, in a way, I think they were. Actually, Coastals was kind of like that until Jaguar, because Coastals, for the most part, were brown, earth tone snakes. There wasn't that look that a jungle has. Even a dirty jungle would beat a Coastal any day. Yeah, so that's one that kind of drove me to selectively breeding Coastals. But with the Papuans, I think it was kind of that same way. I know about that same time, Yosser was doing a lot of work with his, and a lot of selective breeding. It was Herman, the Mocha, and I mean, I wish I was creative with names on naming some of this stuff. It's just like female one from this year, female year. I don't have that creativity to come up with it, because everybody knows Scattershot, Delilah, Wow,
Poster Child.
Yeah, everybody knows these names. You don't even have to know who the original breeder was or who came up with a name, but everybody knows those snakes if you're into carpets,
Right.
So one of these days, maybe I'll get smart enough to name some stuff. Stick around.
Yeah.
But Yasser was producing some killer looking animals, and the photography skills to, when you start pulling lavenders and purple and the chestnut color and some oranges out in just a regular Papuan carpet, you're like, wow. And of one of the only species that actually has a different look from daytime to night.
Oh yeah.
You can go in at night. It's not the same snake you saw during the day.
Yeah.
Yep.
A carpet, coastal, same thing. Day in, day night, doesn't change. Jungle, same way. But yeah, I'd focused on those, and it was Jay Logan. What was his? I can't think of his first name right off, but he went by Jay Logan on the forums, and he bought some Papuan carpets from me. Very good photographer, and he would post pictures up a lot. And so it got a lot of drum on my Papuan carpet. So people kept hitting me up, and I'm like, man, I wish I could take pictures like that to really show them off. I could have sold these all.
Right.
But through his pictures and what he was posting on the forums, like, there was a draw. And when he had to get to a point in life where he wound up having to sell his snakes, he told me he didn't disclose a monetary value, but he said he got well compensated when he sold those off. Not sure who all got. I think one of them was Dora. Man, I can't think of all the names, but yeah, one I think went to Luke Snell. One went somewhere else, but I don't know. I mean, now that we have,
how many was it? Do you know?
Oh, there was several. He had 3 that he got from me that he wound up selling off.
I got you.
And I had produced siblings to it, and in future, generations. But now I'm kind of working with het granites. I've got a Herman Cross Mocha male that was one of Yosser's.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly who I got it from, but I've had it for a little while. Really exceptionally nice, clean animal. So I wanted to try to breed those more into granites, and then hopefully try to get some of those colors to kind of pop through into granites. I don't know, for better words, since you're into rat snakes, like a calico rat snake.
Yeah.
Or the calico beauty snake, how you have the white or palmetto corns. You have that white, and you have them just burst a little color popping through that really make it stand out.
Yeah.
Kind of want to do that with the granite. And
yeah,
then,
no, absolutely.
So it's still kind of long-term project. What will help with those is the new fresh blood that's been coming in.
Yeah.
on Papa One carpets. I mean, that's the only thing we can actually get fresh blood on, and like to see them get a little bit further since we've got some before something comes up and we can't get them anymore.
Right.
That we're actually able to have a nice a base of animals.
Absolutely.
You look at a lot of this stuff from, I don't know, crested geckos were thought to be extinct, and then they come in with a handful, like less than 12 animals. And I'm sure some other stuff got in somehow after that, but most of the stuff now is coming from them 12 animals. I mean, most all the Brisbanes came in from a handful of stuff that we got from a 30-something-year-old pair out of Europe. Fortunate to get what we got. So I don't care what they look like. We got them. Trying to make the best of what we can. What we got.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's why I love pop wins, man. You know, I actually have one animal here that's probably my favorite animal. It's partially your line. It's an M-Pen poster child cross. She's one of my breeder females. And she came from, or she was produced by Matt Lacrosse. I got her from David Brahms. And she is
is it
just
that monster female?
Yeah, she's one of my big girls, and she is just a phenomenal animal.
She's a huge.
Yeah, no, she is absolutely fantastic, and she is one of my star breeders. She's given me one clutch. She'll be going again this year, hopefully.
Nice.
Doing a repeat. But man, that's exactly why I love my poplin carpets so much, man. Just like you said, you get one snake during the day, then you get a different snake at night. They're just incredible in the fact that we can still get fresh blood from them, and then the stuff that we get that is fresh
natural
blood.
Variation.
Yeah, just those from wild caught to farm bred animals, they are just the variation you can get, and they're all beautiful. They're such amazing animals in their own way, And Michael, your animals, the stuff from your line, the animals that you've produced in the past are just some of the best in the country by far. If something has the M-Pen, name attached to it, it's gonna go, like a hotcake, man. They are incredible.
Did you ever think pop ones would get more popular?
Pop off?
When you first got into them, did you think that these would actually?
I hoped that they would. But no, I mean, because there really wasn't really, I would say in order for stuff to really pop off, you would have to have morphs.
Yep.
The fact that you got the granite, which was nice, but then you've really got to outcross your granite,
yes,
to another line before you can breed granite to granite, or you want it with some issues. Now it's got its own xanthic. So I think it's kind of helped it, but I'm starting to see more people going for more of a natural look. Like I still have a huge female olive python that I got from Nick ages ago, and love her to death. I can get her out the cage. She's got her days, but most of the time I can get her out the cage, kind of lug her around. But I remember when I would see them back in 2003, 2004, when I was going to shows that, oh, that's just a green snake. Like more people were looking at a green Burmese because it was a morph.
Yeah.
Instead of just the normal Burmese. This is just a plain green snake. Nobody wanted it. Now people are really starting to take a looking and liking for olive pythons, apodoras, just the natural look. And same thing with the being able to access farm bred animals on popcorn carpets, because they just have a natural look. And then you can, with so much coming in, just look forward about 20 years, you can really selectively breed for, color, contrast, reduced pattern. I mean, striping, tiger-like look. I mean, there's a lot that can be done, in just a few generations, and actually have new blood that you can kind of add into and give a little bit different look. I think it could really go far, and plus they're smaller. Out of all the carpets outside of jungles, they're smaller.
Yeah,
And that's a huge, draw for most people because it's about the size of a ball python.
yeah.
A big female ball python, about the same size.
Yeah, and I'll say I have two. So it's funny, like when it comes to size with those, I think there is a huge variation. No, I won't say huge. There's a variation with those because, like, the first carpet clutch I ever got was from maybe a 4.5 foot female.
Mm-hmm.
But I have two girls, one being the Pen I was talking about, and then another girl that's, I consider undocumented. She was sold to me as a Leary. She's clearly not a Leary.
Yeah.
So I consider her undocumented, but they are 6.5 foot animals.
Mm-hmm.
They're big, but then my male that will literally breed a piece of rope, he's
He's
three and
tiny.
a half foot, maybe.
Yep.
Like they're small, and I think a lot of that comes with genetics, and I don't know why that is, but it's really variable with the Poplins, but and not only in size, but like you were saying, with the colors and the variations that you can get, it's endless.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you have guys, me, I'm all wild types. I have no morphs, as far as carpets go in my collection whatsoever. And I'm trying to produce, more on the yellow side, more on the dark side. But then, like, if for the morph guys, you start taking some of those wild type variations into your morphs, God only knows how they can change the morphs.
Mm-hmm.
Get
Yep.
super dark coastals, get super purple. I mean, coastals, xanthics, get super dark xanthics, super purple xanthics, super light xanthics.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're talking about more of the purpley looking granites, and it's the sky's the limit when it comes to these things, man.
Yeah, that is.
That's what's wild is like they've come a long way, but they're still
they're
just a
so
ton
untapped. They're
of
still so untapped
potential.
because we're just on the because for such a long time, so many people, I can't tell you when I was first really getting into them, how many times I got comments like, "Oh, nice, nice beige, carpet python. It's not yellow and black, and it was what it was, but that is really starting to change now. So many more people are starting to see the potential in these animals, and it's frankly, it's awesome to see. I love it,
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing. More and more people are seeing the potential and getting into them, and there's part of me that like doesn't want them to go full on mainstream like the jungles did, but still it's amazing to see how people are really starting to see like
I don't think they
how
will,
amazing they are.
honestly. I think there's so much stuff being kept now, and people posting so much stuff that you don't have the sort of the funneled bottlenecked focus on certain groups to drive a certain sector of the hobby and
Yeah.
towards one thing, like the forums would do.
Mhm.
Now it's you go on Instagram or whatever, and there's endless species and colors and things like that to choose from that I don't think it'll ever get to the point to where they'll get to that sort of jungle status where that's sort of the the flavor of the decade,
Yeah, I don't really foresee a normal Popwin carpet selling for $700, but they're definitely getting there, like I've seen some
Yeah.
as of the last 2 years, I've seen the highest priced Popwins I've ever seen in my time keeping them,
Mm-hmm.
so they're definitely on the way, but as far as getting to that super high mark, no, I think it's going to be a very long time, but I do think the potential is absolutely there.
Yeah. I really never thought jungles would be as high priced as they are right now. And I say high priced, it's value. I mean, you
Yes.
you get a really nice, clean animal. Parents look good, grandparents look good, potential's there. You're going to pay a premium.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
to see the prices on some of these, it was like, yeah, yeah. But then I kind of do the same thing with some of the red coastals. So
Mm-hmm.
a little hard work in there, and Just happened, I say hard work. It was just happened to have the right animals to pair up and let them do what they got to do, and just let it hatch and see what you get.
Yeah, and
The
I
hardest
mean
part is
that's
not selling everything, like pulling stuff back, and then you sell it, and then you go, wow, I should have kept that one back. And the funniest one is Eric Burke used to have a coastal carpet. I want to say it's on his Facebook page or the Morelia pythons, but it's a really nice, clean coastal carpet python. And as soon as I saw it, I said, that's one of mine. I just knew it.
yeah.
And the story goes, I posted them for sale, and this guy in Louisiana had hit me up, wanted to buy a trio, said, but I won't get paid till Friday. I'll pay you Friday. I said, okay, cool. I'll hold them. Like a half hour later, Eric hits me up. Hey, man, I want these 3 animals. I said, man, they're already spoken for. But if the guy backs out, you're next in line. Mm-hmm. Well, the guy went ahead and bought them. Eric stayed in contact with him. He said, if you ever get rid of them, he wanted them. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that. So when I seen Eric posting these animals up, I'm like, man, those are mine. And he told me the story that he'd wind up getting them. And I'm like, God, I should have never sold those. I mean, they are so clean, but you just don't know sometimes.
Right.
I got a buddy said, James Lewis from the Gumbo podcast.
Yep.
It said, why is it that everybody else has M pins but you? Well, I didn't. Honestly, I was just a guy breeding carpets. I really didn't think they were going to really look, because I mean, looking at the adults and kind of what the market was, I really didn't think they were all going to color that well. Mm-hmm. I kept a few back, and anybody that's bred for a while can tell you sometimes you don't keep back the right ones. Yeah. You think you do. I mean, you still get some nice ones, but sometimes you get a couple that late bloomers that you sell, and you're like, oh my gosh, I was so stupid to let that one go.
Even then, though, I don't necessarily look at it as a bad thing, because I think Bill Stiegel sort of put it best. He sells sickness offspring, and he's like, I don't get upset if they turn out nice, because that's like the best form of advertising you can get, because people are going to go like, man, who produced that? And he's like, Bill Stiegel.
Yeah, that's true.
Pennell. It's like, then there's automatically sort of an association built there, and so I mean, it's not a horrible thing, because I'm kind of bad about holding on to things long term in terms of like holdbacks and stuff, but it's one of those things that I tell myself, like, if I end up selling something, it's like someone's gonna one day see that and want to know who produced it, and my name will come up, and then hopefully maybe I'll have some more down the line. But
yeah.
Absolutely. So with that said, funny you bring that up. Are you still working any of, like, I'll say original, but are you working with any just normal wild type M-Pen, Poplins right now?
Poplins. Let me see. No. Well, I do. So I did take that Herman Mocha male from Spitfire originally, and just bred him to a het granite female. Just I wasn't even worried about the granite part. I just wanted to produce a couple of nice, babies and raise up. I only wound up. It was right in the middle of moving, so we bought a house this year and moved during the 100+ degree temperatures that we were having here in Texas at the time. And I think I wound up losing a few of those eggs, and I wound up with like 3 that wound up, because she didn't have a really big clutch, but I wound up with like 3, and then 2 were stillborn and 1 hatched. Really nice little female.
Yeah.
So I'm going to repeat the pairing this year, and then try to get some, and then now that I've got a little bit more room, snake building wise, I can probably pick up a couple more poplin carpets and be very picky about what I pick.
Yeah.
Since there's more out there to be available now.
Yeah.
At one point, you just kind of got what you it's like I said with the Brisbanes, you just that's what you get, and make the best of what you got. And then you start holding some back and try to work the projects that way. So I don't know. There's still plenty can be done.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, the animal, the M Pen poster child cross that I have now, she threw some absolute screamers, man. I ended up, actually just this year, I held on to him for all of 2 years. I finally, started to part ways with some because I got a little heavier in the colubrids and parted ways with some babies. But I kept back one pair, and oh man, I cannot wait for those things to start growing up. I've got a male that is just, I mean, both of them, the male and the female that I kept, are
Yeah.
just out of this world, yellow and just incredible looking animals. Like you said, you look at it one morning, they look one way. Look at them at night, completely different, and they're just incredible. And I'm doing a repeat pairing this year that I'm super excited about. They've got, so it's a lot of different bloodlines. It'll have M Pen poster child, then the male is a GQ. Oh man, what is he? He's got several things in him. I haven't looked at his card recently, but GQ, M Pen, and a few other things. There's some
Like
head granite. There's
those
some
corns
head
from
granite.
Chris that are het for like 5 different things.
Yeah,
I'm like,
there's
it's het for like I don't know what.
Yeah, there's a lot of different bloodlines mixed in there, which is, to me, it's cool because it just adds that much more variation, but they're some just incredible animals. I can't wait to see what she can give me this year, hopefully.
Nice.
But,
Yeah, I might have to get some from you. Add to the collection.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I would be honored to send you snakes.
I did pick up a pair of popcorn carpets from I can't think of his name right now. Uba Bami.
Billy.
Saying it right?
Yeah. He's actually a good friend of ours, Billy Hunt.
Yeah, Billy Hunt. Yeah. I picked up some. I mean, he posted some babies, and man, the colors on them. I'm like, yeah, I got to have that pair right there, and hit them up. Got a pair in, so I'm raising those up to kind of add into outside of doing stuff with granites, but just to have some really nice, popcorn carpets too. So
he's got some Some of the adults he has are just unbelievable. He has one in particular.
Exactly.
It's just ridiculous. I've never seen another pop one like it.
Yeah, no, I actually have one from him that is also an M Pen, but that's an M Pen GQ European line.
Oh, okay.
So that's another male that I have that I'm raising up. He's going on 3 years old, I believe, but I'm a pretty slow grower, so he's definitely small for his age.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, he's coming up. He's looking great. I've definitely got a decent variety of animals, some of my own production. I've got a wild caught animal, an absolute screamer farm bred animal that's black as night. Absolutely love that guy. He will hopefully go for me this year, but we'll see. But yeah, man, it's great. I love him to death.
And see that what you brought up right there is one of the most, outside of being at a show and seeing a kid hold a snake and just the smile on their face, just to get to touch a snake, is getting an animal like that and in trying to work and create something that matches that. Yeah. Even if it's not genetic, a melanistic part, but polygenic to produce more like that, I think is what really makes this hobby so much fun. Yeah. I mean, I posted up, I think it was a year ago, I produced some caramels, and I said, man, has anybody ever produced dark caramels? And they're like, no, those are just normals. And I actually had 2 people hit me up, Nick being one, and I want to believe it was Mike Curtin, that he had actually produced some. Nick said he sold some as normals, and he wound up being caramels. They were just that dark, but it looking at it, it's got the telltale caramel sign on it.
Right.
And I'm like, I know this is caramel, so I'm keeping it to try to produce dark caramels and see what comes of it. A lot of my red animals, outside of the really, really reds, go red and black.
Oh, wow.
So the breeder male, my original red male, I kept his son, and his son is dark. Like you can see tones of red, mixed in with the dark color and pattern, but he throws incredible red babies. And I've yet till last year finally produced a female that's even close to him. So I'm raising her up to breed to see if I can get some really dark ones.
Yeah.
Just for the dark look. I mean, everybody was crazy about poison ivy.
Oh God.
You know, and if we were to actually get melanistic jungles, you know, I mean, it's different, you know, but I think that's what makes it exciting. Like, who else has a melanistic jungle? Like, hey, I can produce some.
Yeah.
I'm working on it, you know, those type of projects. It separates you from everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
No,
remember Rob
absolutely.
Christian at Daytona, I think last year, he was looking at jungles. He's like, man, he's like, how come? He's like, everyone's going for the more yellow. He's like, but no one seems to be really aiming for as much black as possible in jungles.
Dude,
So
the
that's what he was-
blacker the better, man. I love my dark poplin carpets. I've got a
Yeah, like
pair.
that one in particular you had, dude. That
I
awesome.
originally had a pair lined out. I still have the male, but I had a female that was just spitting image perfect. It was going to be, they were both farm bred. They were going to be the cornerstone of my dark project. And the female ended up rolling on me out of nowhere, and it broke my friggin' heart. So
That hurt me.
yeah, no, that was bad. Luckily the male is still just as nice, if not even better. He is he's the best looking carpet I own by far, but
Yeah.
he's got a ton of black on him. He's going to be hopefully going to that undocumented female I was talking about earlier. That's huge, but she's also super, super dark. So it's going to kill me not to say they're true F1s, because I can't, you know, like I said, I consider her undocumented. But still, if they go, they will produce some insanely dark animals with some crazy burnt orange on the sides, you know, that they're just going to be really, really good
Toasted
looking animals.
poplins.
Yeah, they're going to be,
There you go.
great. So that's the hope. I'm kind of going, you know, for my main focuses are pretty much black for one and then yellow for the other. A lot of people are kind of like in between in that super orangey look, you know, so I'm trying to be a little bit different, try and get more yellows mixed in there versus, you know, some of the oranges, and then, you know, the super, super dark stuff. And luckily I have an F1 that's also really dark, and then a Wildcaught that's still coming up. She's got a little bit more to go, but she's on the darker side. She's not as dark as I would like, but she could definitely throw some darker animals depending on the pairing.
Nice,
So
nice.
that's definitely in the coming months.
What do you think caused sort of the shift towards people having more of an interest in the wild types?
I would say probably getting disgusted with morphs.
That's me.
I mean, I like them because, one, you go to shows, that's what's selling. You got to pay your table, you got to pay your hotel. But at the end of the day, and we'll leave ball pythons out of this. They've done a lot over the last little bit, although, you know, the market's there.
Yeah.
Before that, it was corn snakes, leopard geckos. But when it came to carpets, since that's what we're talking about, Jaguar had its heyday. It kind of screwed stuff up because it came in. It's like, man, I like this. And then they bred it to everything. And so you had all these, you know, bred to jungles, poplin carpets. People were breeding it to Brettles pythons, to, what was the guy in Australia bred them to Murray Darlings. Just doing it, and it just kind of like destroyed all of it, because now you got all these, I guess, lack of a better word, mutts running around. So it did a lot to kind of help destroy it, but it also, I would say, also built it, because then it actually could get people to stand back and go, you know what, the wild type was actually a pretty good looking animal. We didn't really need that morph. And then just through selective breeding and getting, it's still pure coastal, but it's got a stripe, or it's really heavily banded, or it's got a really nice, you know, contrasting color, light to dark, you know, it's not just brown. And this was crazy. You get them, and they're like, the babies look nothing like, get them about a year old on any of them, and it looks so much better.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard unless people know carpets to just say, I want that brown one right there, and really know with forethought what it's going to look like eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. Because carpets go through that funny phase of when they're born, they're that screaming red, beautiful little animals. And then they hit about that year or so old and they get kind of browned out. They're kind of that average looking carpet. Then they go hit that adult color phase, and then they're just screamers again. You know what I mean? Like there's that in between. You can sell them as babies super easy. You can sell them when they're bigger super easy, but that in between is kind of dicey. Getting people to see the potential.
Hatch them pop ones out nice and red, and get a couple of meals in them. They start turning brown real quick.
Yep. Oh yeah.
You're like, I swear it was red. But
I don't know. Those ones that Jake hatched out, he had a pretty good eye for some of the holdbacks he held on to. Because, like, I wouldn't have been able. I mean, I'm not a big carpet guy, but him picking out and saying like these handful are going to be what I think some of the nicest in the clutch, and sure enough, he called it. Like they were bangers.
Yeah,
well, there's been a couple people over the years that have been able to do that.
Eric Burke is one of the
probably
best.
hold back more just to see the potential.
Yeah.
And as they start to get 6 months, 8 months, a year old, and you're like, okay, this one's not quite turning out the way I thought. I'm going to go ahead and sell it. Because I've probably got way more holdbacks that I'm raising up than breeder carpets to begin with. Which
do you have a particular process for picking out holdbacks? Do you try to hold back a certain number? Is there
well, it's not really a particular number. Certain projects, like I wanted to put Exanthic into the red coastals, and so I only had one female red, so she was obviously the one that held back. She doesn't look that great, but the genetics are there.
Right.
On other projects, you get animals that just stand out for some reason or another. It could be contrast. It could be color. I don't really ever hold anything back because of attitude.
No.
I know people that have talked about trying to do that were really tame and calm to begin with and try to breed that trait. It would work, but at the end of the day, I think color and what you see with your eyes is what sells.
Right.
So I don't really have any set criteria, I guess, for why I hold them back, other than, man, that one that one really looked good. I have a feeling that one's going to look good. Yeah. And I've produced some really nice ones by, stuff I've held back. But not all your holdbacks are always going to be future breeders.
Right. Do you have a preference towards keeping more males over females or anything like that?
Actually, I probably got more males than I need. A lot of it just depends on look. It really does, especially with my reds right now. A lot of it's look. I really wish I could describe it, but outside of like stripe, and I like stripe, but like I produce some nice head Exanthic coastals, and the banding on them is crazy. I would love to keep them just because of the banding.
Right.
Now, if I could get that with red, it'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So eventually trying to do red Exanthics, we'll see what it looks like. But the Exanthic trait is really, I don't know why, but it's heavily tied with banding. I've seen a lot of the animals that are banded, and I've noticed that with in ball pythons, the Joliffe Exanthic line tends to be a heavily banded animal, whereas the other Exanthic lines don't exhibit that same trait. I don't know why it is. The het Exanthic that I got from Nick, very heavily banded. Babies I produced this year were very heavily banded. So on something like that, it would probably be, what's the contrast between the dark bands and the light bands? Is there a very distinct contrast, like white to black, or is it just kind of gray to a dark gray?
Mm-hmm.
The more contrast, the better, to try to clear and produce really clear contrasting animals later on.
And do you find there to be sort of a correlation though between that, where you have high contrast babies that end up being that sort of keep that into adulthood?
Yes, I do. A few of them, not all of them. And some of it is just keeping stuff out that's different. So I learned from short-tail python breeder years back that the best red blood pythons at adults are the ugliest babies.
Why not? Of course.
Like if you kept the best high red blood pythons, they dull out as they get older. The best red adults are more dull babies. Completely opposite of what we've been trying to work with everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, every once in a while I'll keep one that's just kind of off just to see how it'll color up, to see if it'll change. I think I've been surprised on one, but for the most part, carpet wise, doesn't really hold true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've had that with some corns. I did my locality pairing last year that I was sure that it had some really, really nice looking corns, given that sort of the parents were on opposite ends of the sort of the spectrum with darkness and contrast and stuff. And they were still really good looking corns, but then I paired that same female to another male that was very in line with sort of the same lower contrast, more uniform kind of look, and those babies were, I think, nicer than the ones from last year's pairing. Just I thought that was interesting because I really wasn't expecting anything mind blowing to come out of that pair this year, and I was pleasantly surprised with what I got out of it. So I'm going to repeat that pairing next year for sure.
So I take it you got a couple of holdbacks?
Yeah, and what I've noticed, or at least what I've been doing, is I try to hold back at the bare minimum a pair. If there are some that the same thing, where if they kind of stand out or something looks a little interesting, hold on to that one too. I mean, that is the nice thing about holdbacks, is you can hold on to them for however long you want to, and then if it ends up sort of going a different direction than what you had thought it would, then you just you part with it. But
yep.
Like either a pair or 2.2. I think 2.2 is what I held on to from last year, and then Jake got some, but he ended up having males, so I ended up giving him a female, or it was two females and something. I don't know, but yeah. So that's the other sort of nice thing, is having buddies that are just as interested in it, and you can hook them up with some, and then if you need to tap into what they got, then
it's even better when they're in the same city.
That's right.
Yeah.
When they're right across town.
Yeah, we did.
Exactly.
I did a show, man, it's been a couple years back. I think I was in Corpus Christi, and after the show Saturday night, a couple of us got together, went and ate dinner, and two of them had bought carpets from me. One lived in Galveston, the other was in the Dallas area, and we were sitting there just discussing carpets and talking about holdbacks and future projects. And one of the guys was telling me that he was specific things he was holding back for, which was completely opposite of stuff that I was holding back for. So there's variation for the individual eye. What Jake might really like, you won't, or vice versa. But then it gives it 2 years down the road, be like, man, or 2 generations, with breeding those specifically. Okay, yeah, I see what you're getting at. Now I want some, maybe can fit that in to what I was working with.
We find that to be the case with us, but with more species related stuff rather than like traits and stuff. Like there's stuff that he likes that he won't keep, and there's stuff that I keep that he won't, but we both like them a lot. And
So who has more beards, rats?
Me.
I figured it was. I've been kind of eyeballing myself lately, but they're interesting. They're interesting.
Yeah, no, those are one of those ones, man. So like Justin's more of a Texas guy. I'm more of a Southeast guy. I like my yellow rats. I like my grays. I like my black rats. But Justin loves those Bairds, man. And me, like, I think the Bairds are amazing. I think they're absolutely incredible animals, but at the same time, it's like I don't really need to keep them because Justin has them all. Like I get to see
If he
him
ever
play with
needs his
them.
fix, he can just come over and
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's
It'll work.
it's definitely good. Yeah, man. But yeah, no, those Barretts are out of this world. But talking about colubrids, what kind of? So I know you brought up the white-sided black rats, and I saw on your page earlier your I can't remember the date. It may have been a while, but I know you had some Japanese rat snakes. So what kind of colubrid projects are you working on?
Oh man, yeah,
That's a slippery slope.
I've got Russian rat snakes,
Oh,
Japanese rat snakes, white-sided black rats, calico Chinese beauty snake.
Nice.
I need to get a male. African house snakes.
Those are cool too.
Working with a pair of blacks, T positive and het, or visual T positive and hets. And I have a female Ugandan green, and I need to get a male for that. I wanted to go ahead and get the female and start putting some size before I got a male.
Yeah.
A little bit of Western hognose.
Okay, nice.
And something that I really had kind of wanted to work with, but it was kind of mixed mud, and you really can't find them captive bred at shows. So I have a friend that lives in West Texas and used to herp a lot. And so he got a hold of some glossy snakes from me from Brewster County.
Oh, dude.
So he actually has GPS location. I don't need that. I said, as long as I get the county, that's all I'm worried about. So with any luck, I should be producing some next year.
Oh, dude,
I'm not going to get rich off of them, but it was something I just didn't see. And they're really very interesting snakes. And I just wanted to try my hand at doing something different.
Yeah, no, those are really cool snakes, man. I've seen those before. Not in the wild or anything, but I've seen pictures of them before, and they're really, really cool animals.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's it, colubrid wise.
Nice.
Still keeping savus?
Yes.
You still breeding savus?
With any luck, I should have some this year. Kind of just laid low on them for a little bit, and looks like I really needed to go ahead and get back to breeding them. Yeah, the market's gotten crazy on them lately, and I remember where they're like 150 a piece, and I could have got a silver back in the day for like $750.
Yeah.
Oh my
now that's what normal ones are going for $750 now.
Yeah, if you can even find them.
Yeah. But yeah, I've got savus. Also work with inland carpets, Metcalfi, Angolans, couple of red bloods, children's spotteds, Stimsons. I think that's it.
Well,
that's a lot.
One of our talking points tonight was the dwarf Burmese python.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, so those, can you tell us a little bit about those, kind of, how you acquired them? Because they're certainly not a species you see very often at all, let alone captively bred like you have done.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about, those and how they came about and, your success with them?
Okay. Man, it must have been probably 2004. I can't remember exactly when the dwarf Burms came in the country, but I remember seeing some. So before Arlington NERBC was bought by NERBC, Mike Wilbanks and Bob Clark did that show for about 2 years, and then NERBC took it over. So I was vending that show. My first one was in 2003. So I want to say it was the next year, and Bob had some. Like I said, I had a friend that was doing Burmese, and a guy from New York had wound up buying a pair of them because he wanted something different, but didn't know what to do with them. Mm-hmm. And so we gave them to my friend Jim to raise up. At some point in time, Jim got out of Burms. Everything was gone, but I always liked those. I'm more of smaller snake. I don't do the giant berms and reticks. I
Yeah.
normally do this by myself, and I don't need, accidentally get wrapped up, spook an animal, because most
Yeah.
of the time it's, our fault by how we do it. Um, so I kind of looked into the dwarf berms. They had a show years back. Bob Clark had some, and they were just getting ready to go ahead and put that constrictor ban in, where Burmese, African rocks, boas, because I remember when boas tanked, you would not be able to cross state lines or ship them because it would be
Yeah.
a federal Lacey Act violation. So, being in Texas, which is a really big state, I said, you know what, if I get a pair and I successfully breed them, there's a lot of people in Texas. If I
Yeah.
lived in Rhode Island, it wouldn't make any sense for me. There's like 20 people. But in Texas, there's a lot of people. So I could be the guy that has dwarf berms. So that's what kind of led for me to get them, raised them up, and 3 years successfully, or not successfully, tried to breed them for 3 years. And finally, the third year successfully was able to reproduce them, which was this past year. And turns out there was actually 3 people in the country to produce dwarf berms this year. There's been none produced for, man, many, many years. Everything out there is not pure prog shy. It's half dwarf, quarter
Right.
dwarf, and I hated seeing it. So, I mean, there's a market for it. I mean, I like super dwarf reticks, but
Right.
how do you get the morph in it? Well, you've got to breed them.
Yeah.
I'd rather just have the locality myself.
Yeah.
But for the most part, most of them are going to people that are going to keep them pure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Couple years down the road, whoever buys them is whatever they do with them. I mean, I can't control that. But for right now, it's going to go more into the hands of the people. They're going to kind of keep them pure, different states. And then if anything ever does pop off again, there'll be people in different states.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the other thing I forgot to mention. I actually got some Puerto Rican boas.
Oh yeah, yeah. I did see a picture that you posted on this.
Yeah, I got originally started coming in through Eric Chacon.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of those that had to be gifted.
Yep.
Because it's a CITES 1 animal. So, if I ever produce some really cool carpets, I just have to send him something if he's interested in it, just as a gift in return.
Right.
But it was nice to be able to get some. Now that I've moved and got some space, I have a friend that's been wanting to send me some Jamaican boas and try to breed those and see what I can get. Then they'll be in Texas.
Hell yeah.
But it'd be something different.
Yeah.
But yeah, the dwarf berms are just like literally the female was in a 41 quart tub forever.
Wow.
I mean,
Yeah.
give me a size reference. Like, how long was she? Yeah.
She is, I would say she's maybe pushing 7 foot. She's bigger
Okay.
than,
So still a big ish
yeah.
animal. Yeah.
I moved her into a 4-foot cage.
Yeah.
The male I have in a 41 quart tub.
Yeah.
But yeah, literally she was in a 41 quart tub and she could do fine in it. I just wanted to give her that much more room in a bigger cage. So when I pair the male, there's plenty of room in the cage.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was like having a really overfed popcorn carpet.
Yeah.
Not too much difference in the length, a little longer, but bigger around.
Right.
Females got a really good temperament. Males spotty at best. Some
Yeah.
days he's okay. I was cleaning cages earlier this evening. He was in shed and he was actually pretty decent to handling. But normally, if he can see and anywhere close to feeding time, he comes flying out the cage. He's ready.
Mhm.
Yep.
But in general, I mean, the babies have been nice. Right after they came out of the egg, sexing them and stuff was fun. They were little bitey little things, but they've kind of calmed down a little bit. And I mean, so far, I've really, really enjoyed the experience of working with them. And just knowing I can have a Burmese and it's not overpowering when I got to have help to take care of it.
Yeah, it's a pocket-sized Burmese, man.
Yeah. And the natural colors, I mean, if you looked at a normal Burmese and the Prague Shy, the pattern is a little different. It's more broken. It's not as blotched.
Mhm.
The eyes are a little different in position on the head, and the colors are a little more vibrant.
Okay.
So that's what I've been able to notice. I know a guy years back. I was at another show in Oklahoma, and this guy had like a 9-foot berm and tried to say it was a dwarf, and went to Bob Clark and said, "Yeah, I got this from you." And Bob's like, "That's not a dwarf." "No, I got it from you." "It's not a dwarf."
Mhm.
It didn't have the telltale signs of
Right.
pure Prague Shy. So that's how we knew. I knew and he knew. But it's been fun. I'm just glad I was finally. I mean, I was really to that point. I had people like, "Hey, man, I really want the female. If you don't breed them this year, I'll buy them." And I was almost to the point of just completely selling them. I was like,
Mhm.
"Let me just try one more year," because I hated to get something and not successfully go through with it.
Right.
Right.
Let me breed them and then go, okay, well, the joy's not there, and sell them
Mhm.
all versus give up. So I stuck with it. I mean, I thought I was going to have it last year, and then that Texas freeze hit and threw everything off. Like the
Mhm.
whole year was off because of that. So then I had to wait till the following year, which was this year, and successfully had some. So it was great. 100% hit, 100% hatch rate.
Wow, that's incredible, man.
Yep.
No, I had to ask about those because I absolutely love the wild type pattern of Burmese pythons.
Yes.
I think they're awesome animals. I think they are incredibly beautiful. And then I didn't even know dwarf Burms even existed until I saw your post about them a long time ago, just owning them, and I was like, this is a thing.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
these are real, like what, and they're just, the fact that you're able to hatch them. And I saw that picture of the slew of babies that you had, and I was like, oh my God, man, these are
Yeah.
freaking
I mean,
incredible.
I love retics. Like a normal wild type retic is freaking incredible. But
One of the most beautiful animals on the planet.
no
It is.
desire to own them.
It is.
Yeah.
It's just the size.
Yeah.
And I've seen too many people that want to get them and they want to build a nice big cage in the living room. When that thing takes a crap and you walk in after a hard day's work, no, that's not what you want to do. And your kitchen's in the other area trying to
Nope.
The illusion is shattered.
make room only. Make room only.
Yeah.
It's supposed to smell like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you done maternal with any of your stuff?
Yes. My first clutches into the foray of successfully breeding 2002. I'd had some eggs before then. Like I said, I'd used the old hover baiter, and my daughter was probably 2 at the time. And if you guys know what the hover baiter used to have, a little wafer thermostat, and there was this little
Mhm.
wing on the top. And I think she'd went in there and played with it, and so it got too hot, too cold. I didn't get any eggs, so it was 2002, and I'm like, I don't have this incubation thing down yet. I'm gonna let maternally incubate. So my first clutch of coastal carpets and Borneo short tails was 2002, maternally incubated.
Nice.
The carpets was, I want to say it was 19 eggs. I know I wound up with an extra snake as compared to the eggs. So I wound up having a twin,
Yep.
which was really cool. And then I think I got 100% hatch in the Borneo short tails. Kind of figured out how to do the whole incubation thing after that. So most of the time has been artificially. In every so often, I'll do a maternal incubation. I think I did a few this year because we were looking for a house, and I didn't want to pull eggs and stick stuff in an incubator only to have to find a way to stabilize the eggs, move them, and keep a temperature gradient and get set up in another place.
Mhm.
So I let some maternally incubate. And I don't know if it was this year or last year, I let a carpet python do it. And what was really cool is, you see them on their eggs, and, generally we think they don't eat. And I remember seeing a post by Will Leary ages back, where he offered a small rat, and she would take the small rat and then coil back up around the eggs. So you'd want to give a small meal, just not a big bulky one like we normally would, because they've got to wrap the eggs. To see them come out, if the eggs need humidity, they'll dip through the water bowl, run the whole body through the water bowl, come back and wrap the eggs in shiver, warmth and humidity.
Yep.
Really neat to see that. And I mean, if you want to talk about a snake that was really laid back, when they eat the rodent, then like you could almost fed it by hand. Now,
Wow.
in general, no, they're not going to have it. They're going to light you up.
Right.
But in that case, she was very just, here, I'll take that. Just kind of very softly bit it, pulled it back, worked it down. I mean, didn't really even constrict it. Just kind of took it, ate it down, wrapped on the eggs, and went back to business. I think I fed her 2 or 3 times. I didn't want to get too much.
Yeah.
But it's amazing the amount of body mass that they still have. So you take like a ball python, they lose half their body mass when they lay a clutch of eggs. Carpet python can lose a lot of mass. And you figure, okay, there's 30 days you didn't eat. Then you wrap on eggs. You don't eat for another 2 months. You ought to be skinny as a rail. And honestly, they're not.
Yeah.
How God designed them to be able to wrap around and do this and still be able to produce future generations later on is crazy.
Yeah, especially considering that they're pretty much burning calories.
Yeah, exactly.
Throughout that entire process.
Yep.
Yeah, that's wild. Should people be as scared of it, of doing it, as a lot of people seem to be, myself included?
No, I don't think so. I actually think it was a good learning and a fun learning experience. Like I said, because I would have never thought that give the snake some food. No. And like I said, it was Will Leary that did it the first time that I remember. And so years later on, when I try to say, you know what, let me try to give her a small rat and just see if she'll eat. And sure enough, I just ate a small rat and went back. And I mean, this is one that can normally take large rats to almost jumbos.
Right.
So I fed her kind of a weanling to small rat size and did great with it. And I think it's the only drawback I would say is depending on the type cage that you house that female in. Like I had some AP cages. The vents on the back are routed vents and there's no screen. The gap in the glass door is a gap. So you get small carpets that hatch.
Yeah.
They can go through all them small holes. So you might want to, right before they get ready to hatch, kind of keep an eye out or pull them just before they hatch. Or find some way to kind of cover up them holes, do screen or something like that. Put some newspaper in the glass door. It was really cool seeing the mother. I actually did it with ball pythons. I did 3 clutches this year with ball pythons. Let them go full maternal, and to see them hatch out was really cool.
And did you notice any difference in the hatch rates, size of the babies, anything like that? In comparison to the artificial?
I would say that the babies probably hatched a little bit bigger. I know they absorbed a lot more of the yolk.
Yeah.
A lot more of the yolk. Like there was really nothing much left in the egg. They hatched a little bit bigger. Now, as far as if they went on to food a lot quicker, I really didn't track that. But it seems like they hatched, on a bigger side, healthier side.
Yeah.
Like they absorbed all the yolk. Stayed in there, didn't feel like they had to get out, didn't do like some of these guys on YouTube that evicts them, cut them open and pop them out. Ain't gonna mention no names. Y'all know who I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, they just had time to come out. They weren't in any rush. I mean, I'd seen some that stayed in 3-4 days, and I'm like, come on out. I'd like to see what I've got and kind of go out. But yeah, took their time, came out, nice, big, and healthy.
Yeah, and that's for me, from what I've heard from people that have done it, that's pretty much the general consensus is that they always come out just generally bigger, like a lot heftier of animals, babies.
Did you find the incubation time to be longer or about the same as artificial?
I think it actually took a little bit longer. But like I said, I also moved.
Yeah.
And so The first, like I had to halfway get my snake room done, do insulation, and we had to be out of the house we were at by the end of June. And I had to put new electric service on my snake building.
Mm-hmm.
So I got somebody to run the electric. I did the wiring, the outlets, ran to the breaker box, got it all set, ran the breakers. And it was going to be another 2 weeks before they come to hook up the electricity, or wound up being 2 more weeks. So I wound up having to run extension cords from my house to window units. They got put in the window to kind of keep them cool. So supplemental heat in the room, they didn't have.
Right.
So they didn't really have like kind of that hot spot in the 88s that you would like. They were probably 85, 86, maybe a little cooler, depending on how close they were to the window unit and the fan blowing. So it took a little bit longer, but it doesn't look like the babies were any different.
Yeah.
So I'll probably try some again next year just to see. Like I said, it was very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had one female, actually two, that were extremely aggressive. Like you tried to get in there and check on the eggs, like she was constantly striking. Most of the time, they're kind of laid back. But two of them were highly, highly aggressive.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've definitely heard that was, especially with carpets they can be very protective of their eggs.
And surprisingly, both of these were ball pythons.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's what really surprised me. I said, I would expect it out of the carpets, but balls, really? I mean, you guys are puppy dogs. I mean,
Yeah.
reach in the cage anytime you want and pick them up. Nope.
And that it also makes sense though, because, in the wild, number one, eggs are preyed upon by all types of stuff, but also in that scenario, the females are also very vulnerable. You know what I mean? Like they're literally sitting ducks, or sitting snakes, if you will.
Yep.
So they kind of have to be on edge, number one, for their clutch, and number two, for themselves. So it definitely makes sense,
Definitely.
When did ball pythons come into the picture?
So my very first snake was a ball python. I got it. I had a friend that I work with. I was in college, and it was a guy I worked with at the factory that had a couple snakes, had a ball python. So we went to a local jobber and got my first snake, which was a ball python. Died like 3 days later.
Oh.
Yeah. So didn't really get discouraged. Went back. He didn't have any, and got an albino California king snake.
Nice.
Yeah, used to bite the piss out of me.
Metropiltis.
So
that
was that whole learning curve. So like you're like, why is this thing biting? So as soon as it bite, you put it back in the cage. As soon as it bite, you put it back in the cage. And then the more you kind of learn, you're like, I gotta let this thing just bite the piss out of me. So it finally just learns, because I was, reverse training it. I don't want to be messed with. Let me just bite and it'll be put back in the cage, and I'm done.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of work that other way. So then a little bit after that, I wound up getting another ball python, and shows were kind of popping up quite a bit in the mid to late 90s. So I picked up Solomon Island ground boas, and had a dwarf caiman, spectacle caiman at one time. And then a friend of mine, Rick Wallace, had a bunch of carpets, and that's what introduced me to carpets. All his either came directly from Dave and Tracy. So my original M-Pen coastals came from the Barkers. My spotted python came from Bob Clark, and some other stuff. But basically, that's how I got introduced to carpets. And he had jungles and coastals, and then he had a life change and said, "Yep, got to get rid of all the snakes. Here you go." So I went from like 4 snakes, 5 snakes to like 35, 40. Wound up with a 16-foot Burmese python, 13-foot
jeez.
grub. And I'm like, okay, I don't deal with Burmese. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to put this thing in the little snake room storage building I had at the time. And got it sold fairly quickly because that was not my deal. Had a 13-foot bar neck. Had to get rid of her. She was highly aggressive. Great, beautiful snake, but like literally I had her in
It ain't no fun, man.
4-foot Nia Deshay. And every time I wanted to clean the water bowl, clean the cage, I would actually have to get a rat and throw it in the cage and let her bite and wrap it, take the whole ball of snake and stuff out, put it in the tub, clean.
Oh, jeez.
By that time, she was done eating. She was quick. So I had to throw another rat, let her do the same thing, and pick her up, put her back in the cage. So she had no interaction other than rat. So she was always going to be aggressive because really that was the only way I handled her. I didn't have a whole lot of experience with large aggressive snakes at the time. Right. So I was doing the best just not to get myself bit.
Yeah, because that would be
gnarly.
That's detrimental, man. Like David Means sent me a picture of a bite he took, a full-on like food bite from an adult animal that was actually very calm normally, but it actually got out, was sitting on top of his cage, and he turned on his light and he saw the heat of his hand and immediately bit his hand in a food response. He sent me the picture of that thing. It looked like he had been bit by a rattlesnake, dude.
Oh,
thing swelled up like a baseball on top of his hand. Like it was, those bites from those big scrubs, man, are not to be messed with. Like, that's a nasty animal.
I think one of the worst ones I ever got was a 10-foot common boa constrictor. Had the old vision cages. Had the rat pair of hemostats. Went to slide the door open to feed, and she smelled the rat and saw the heat of my hand. Tagged my hand, realized it wasn't it, and let go. Hurt. Finished feeding, and I was working a graveyard shift, and I had to go to work, and everybody was just looking at my hand, and they're like, "What happened?" I'm like, "Mistake, snake. I had to kill that snake." I said, "Well, that's the difference between you and me."
Yeah.
My fault. And I'm right-handed. It was my right hand, so everything I was trying to do, it was just like it hurt, but it was like,
Yep.
That was the worst one. It's was for the size. I mean, the whole palm of my hand, the top of my hand, teeth marks, slash, everything. What's worse, and anybody that's dealt with them, is when you get teeth stuck in your knuckles. Yeah. And 2 months later, you're like, "Oh, what's that bothering my knuckle?" And all of a sudden, you found another tooth that you thought you got all of them out, and 2 months later, you're finding another one.
The gift that keeps on giving.
Yes. I'd rather have that one than the other gift that keeps giving.
Yeah.
The whole bite issue.
Oh, yeah.
I'll take the teeth any day.
Yeah. No, I actually had, one of that super dark male I was talking about, he actually did the same thing. I was going to slide open his tub because I had some David Brahms portals that he was in.
Mm-hmm.
And I slid open the tub, and I was like, he was locked and loaded, ready to feed. I was like, I think I'm good. And I slid it open. He just reached out and tagged me right there, full force, which he's one of the sweetest animals I have. But, when he's in food mode, nothing else matters. And I knew he had left teeth in me, and I got, a couple of them out. But it was several weeks later, started to heal up, and I kept feeling it still hurt. And I kept feeling little prickly parts, like 2 prickly parts on my thumb. And I was like, man, are these still teeth? I squeezed out 2 little teeth like a pimple out of my thumb. I just squeezed it, and out popped just whoop, just came out these crazy. 2 teeth. And I was like, yeah, there they are. I still got a picture of that somewhere because I did it at work, and I just squeezed it, and out came these teeth.
Wow. But, I had a adult female Papuan carpet one time. I was cleaning cages and took it out, was trying to put in a bucket, and she tagged me good, bit, wrapped, actually more or less handcuffed me. And wasn't much I could do. My daughter was in the other room. She's probably about 6, 7 years old then. Came in there and she's like, she heard me holler, right? And then she was like, well, what can I do? Well, she told me I need to quit cleaning cages. I said, I got to get her put up and then I'll quit. And I said, but I need you to at least grab the tail and at least free one of my hands. And I was fine. But when I was able to finally unlatch her off my other hand, that's when I started to bleed. So I had a tooth that went in the webbing between my fingers that it went all the way through. And it wasn't until I unlatched her that the tooth came out. And it's like, oh, okay, now the blood can flow. And like it was blood dripping everywhere. And she's like, okay, you got to quit. I said, when I get done with this, I'll quit for the rest of the day just because you said so. And then I had to go back to cleaning the next day. But I took a break that day after that.
Yeah. No, that was kind of similar to the nasty caramel jag that we were talking about earlier. I got this thing like literally the day I took it out of the bag. I'm holding this thing and I could tell it was on edge because the guy told me like, yeah, he's cool. He can be kind of dodgy during feeding, but he's fine. And I'm like, oh, okay, you know. So I took it out of the bag with the hook, held it in my hand for a minute, and I'm like, he seems kind of off. And then like I moved a little bit and he bit the side of my pants. And I was like, oh God, I need to get this thing like down like right now. And as soon as I had that thought, I went to go put it in the cage. And this thing turned on me, grabbed on like that, you know, that soft spot in your thumb right about there.
Yep.
You know, grabbed on right there, wrapped my whole hand. That I was like, oh my gosh. And I had to unwrap it from me. And literally, he was not letting go worth nothing. Had to grab him behind the head, push his mouth in to unlatch those teeth. And I felt every one of those mudsuckers come out of my hand and just blood everywhere. Oh my gosh. That was probably the worst non-venomous snake bite I've ever taken. By bar none. That thing was nasty. And he was only
he wasn't
4.5
huge,
foot.
but he was still
he was an adult. He was a proven breeder, you know. He was 4.5 foot long ish, you know, but oh my goodness, that was nasty, man. I was all bruised up the next day and it was bad.
At least you could unlatch his jaws going forward.
Yeah.
I had a friend years back that had a spotted python. Oh, this snake's tame. This snake. I reached in and that sucker tagged me on the soft spot between your thumb and fingers on that little webbing. Yeah. Full on, all the way on. Like you couldn't push the side of his mouth and push forward because he was full on. Like you had to do the credit card stuff. And you're snapping off in there and you're like, oh my God, this just. And the more you try to take the snake off, the more it wiggles and bites down.
Yep.
And that's a very sensitive spot of your hand. And I was like, I'd rather take it on the arm, the elbow. That hurt. So,
yeah. Anything on the hand is just not fun. That really thin skin, you know. I'll take a meaty bite any day of the week than something on the finger.
Yep.
Yeah,
I also keep carpets away from my face.
Oh yeah, no, I don't. There's one carpet that I'll even let anywhere near my neck area, you know, and that's because I full on, you know, there's two carpets I'll let somewhat near my face, but other than that, nope, not even some of my most trusted animals. There's two that I'll let go around my neck, let them do what they're gonna do. Mm-hmm. But even then, it's never like full on. You know, I'm like, all right, get away from my face.
Yeah.
I ain't doing it. No, sir. That's one thing. One thing to date I can say is I've never taken a face bite. Almost did from a rodeo one time, falling into some, leaning over a pipe, catching this thing. I pulled it up and almost whacked me in the face. But
oh wow,
that's been the closest I've come. So. Yeah.
Did you ever keep chondros?
I kept one.
And it changed your life?
Yeah, he sold it.
No, let me see. What do they call it? The magical green snake on a stick.
They are magical.
No, I mean, I enjoyed it.
About as
I don't know. I just didn't really find the
snake as a statue. Yeah.
I mean, it was cool because you knew where it was going to be when you went in the cage. You knew the next day more or less where it was going to be when you went in the cage. A great little snake. It was a male. Like I said, when I got this collection of animals from this guy, man, I got boa constrictors, that big Burmese, the scrub, the green tree python. I think I'd got a male savu at the time. I got a spotted. I got a children's or a pair of children's, the jungles, the coastals, the Papuan carpets. I can't remember if I got them or I bought them just shortly after. But yeah, I got a lot of stuff, and that was one of them was that green tree. So you're talking about somebody didn't have a whole lot of experience. Wound up getting these probably 2 years before I successfully had bred. So probably 2000. And I enjoyed it. It just was not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
Thought about maybe getting some again. I just, same reason I don't really work with gray-banded king snakes. Because the babies are murdered to try to get to feed. You already have problems with children babies and spotted babies.
Yeah,
A couple of carpets and a couple of balls. But to have a whole clutch of gray bands that's got to scent and do this. And I was worried about hognose, and they're not near as bad. I've had a few and heard some horror stories, but I had pretty good success with them. So, and I had a friend that was going to try to give me some green trees, a couple of babies to get to feed. He said, well, you work graveyard. You sit up with them. And I'm like, trying to tease feed for a half hour and being very still while they eat and don't move because they might drop. And I'm like, man, I ain't got time for that.
Yeah.
I get that. Alterna babies have still been the toughest things to get going.
The bane of
that I've ever dealt with. Yeah. I love gray bands.
Gorgeous.
Love Alterna. There's awesome snakes. I don't plan on ever breeding or dealing with babies again with those.
I think you would really have to breed your own fence lizards or something like that. So you would have a stock and just like, here's a couple, get at least 1 million. Then I can scent after that and then get started. But
yeah,
like as long as I had a frozen fence lizard or something on hand, it was a breeze. But have that like.
I think that's the same reason I was kind of leery of messing with West Indian boas. Because at one time I was, looking at stuff and let me try something different. So I met a guy in New York, and at that time Haiti had opened up its border. So I had got in some Ford's boas, Gracilis vine boas, Haitian boas, which now everybody calls Dominican red mountain boas, that sell for ridiculous amount of money when it's the same thing. Berry Island boa and something else. And just those babies were such a pain. Ford boas, once I kind of got them switched, was not bad. And actually, I beat myself up depending on whether I could say I actually bred them or not. But I had paired up the Ford's boas together, and you could count on one hand the amount of people that have actually successfully reproduced them in the country.
Yeah.
And I was going through a divorce at the time, and I had to downsize the collection incredibly. And that was one of the ones that was on chopping block. Sent them to a guy in Arizona, and like a month later, and I was taking pictures. I'm like, dude, I think she's gravid. And like a month and a half later, she dropped babies.
No, man.
And since it was a boa, like I did all the hard work, but I really can't take credit because I didn't follow through with it,
you know? Got the assist.
Yeah, I gave the assist.
Gee whiz.
Handful of people with the breeders, one assist.
Do you ever do anything with Bismarck rings?
No. I would love to.
I've heard they're horrible. Casey Cannon talks about them all the time and how much he despises them.
I don't know. I think if the right pair were to come along and you could selectively breed those, I mean, and I say that, I mean, it's breeding is more than just breeding, get animals and sell. It's breeding for future generations of stuff that you want to see. So you could take those and do the same thing like they did the smooth scaled sand boas. I think they call it sunset. He's got that high orange when they normally would brown out, and he was able to, line breed. And then I don't know if it actually wound up unlocking a genetic potential there, but you get these really nice orange big worms. Um, so I mean, I've thought about it. I've thought about womas, black-headed pythons. I mean, I see split rock reptiles down here, Sargent all the time with the blackheads and the axanthic blackheads, and I drool over them every time, and it's like, no. It's such a niche market that a lot of the shows here in Texas, I'd be competing right there with him, and I know he doesn't sell out.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here raising something that's going to be 10 foot, and I'm having to hold it for 2 years and hold cage space for it is not something I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting one as a pet eventually, I could probably see that. But, the breeder in me would probably want to breed them. It's one reason I sold the Jag. I kept one really nice Jag female. I was like, I just love the look of her. That reduced pattern is,
Yeah.
And I said, no. I said, I would just wind up breeding her.
Yep.
Let me get one. I said, you know what? I just got to sell them all.
Can't help it, man.
I did the same thing with I had a nice pastel butter spider female that I produced. She wasn't bad. Had a little quirk, but not really bad. And I was like, it's a female sitting in a rack. No, just be gone. Because if I say I'm going to be done with them, I'm going to be done with them.
Yeah.
So I just had to be man of my word. I'm done. And move them on. So.
Yep.
Did you notice with, I guess within the last year or so in particular, but also with COVID and did you see that boom when people were buying stuff because they were stuck at home versus sort of now where people are a little more hesitant to buy things?
Actually, I did. I didn't post as much online then. I was I guess I would say I was relying more on shows and then a couple pictures here and there. A lot of times I'm not a great photographer. So, with working a regular job, and a lot of times it's 48, 60 hours a week, depending on when they schedule mandatory overtime. Let me take pictures of the snakes this weekend. Well, half of them are in shed.
Of course.
And then they've all shed. Well, I don't have time to take pictures. So then it's you're constantly, back and forth on how to do it. So I was actually able to sell. I think Brian Hayes actually bought one of my red coastals. Then I just posted a few pictures, and then out of the blue was like, yeah, like that snake. I want to buy it. I was like, and like 2 weeks later, somebody did the same thing. Another high red male, and I was like, cool. And I didn't have to do much because COVID, everything was kind of shut down. I mean, we actually closed down the factory I work at for about 4 days, and then they opened up for 2 weeks. The area I work in, and I think there was probably a factory that houses over 2,000. There was like 30 of us in there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
And I was able to work, and they were like, we'll pay you double time. Okay, cool with me.
Yeah, sure.
So 40 hours getting paid 80. Did that for 2 weeks. Hey, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Came home. My wife met me at the door. Lysoled me before I came in the house. Had to spin around. Because we really didn't know what we were dealing with. I mean, it was still kind of relatively new, I think it was probably, year and a half later before her and I ever caught COVID.
Yeah.
And that's if I can actually say I did. I mean, I started to get sick first, and I got the little runny nose, and I don't even know if I ran a fever, but I just was feeling general blah.
Yeah.
And a couple days later, she started feeling sick, and I was like, you know what? Let's just go get tested just to see. Got tested. I was negative. She tested positive. I'm like, okay, well, I got to stay at home now because we live in the same house. And I think I wound up having to take another test, and all my symptoms were gone. And I think I took another test on that Friday before I went to work, and it tested positive.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I'm fine.
Right.
But I'd already did the mandatory stay at home with her. So I was able to go to work, and, but it wasn't real bad. Now, granted, I'm not saying that the first ones that came out in the first, I mean, I know a lot of people had friends that had relatives actually die from that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a scary thing. And the worst part is I was actually supposed to be in China about 2 months before basically the United States got shut down.
Oh, wow.
So I work for Train Air Conditioners, building air conditioning systems in a tube fabrication department. And the company was buying a new machine that was manufactured in China, and it had robots on it that did certain processes. And they wanted me to go to, verify that it would be able to hold dimensions and measurements to the tolerance that we require. And had already got my passport and everything ready. And then they said, oh, well, we're not going to do it anymore. We're just kind of shutting stuff down. So I'm like, okay, cool, fine. I didn't want to go anyway. No, I would literally, seriously, I would have loved to, because my brother spent 8 years in China working in marketing and teaching English and stuff over there. So I would have loved to be able to go. But my supervisor and one of the engineers went over and spent like 2 weeks, and they actually were only there about a week and probably 9 days and got kicked out and got sent to Japan before they had to fly out, because they were starting to shut China down because of COVID. And then they came back, and it was probably about 3 weeks later when COVID kind of, like, everything was getting hit, stuff was getting shut down. We got to close stuff down. And we swear up and down they brought it back, but because one of them was sick. He tested negative, but it's like, yeah, you brought it back.
Yeah.
But yeah, we worked through it. But then when the shows kind of started picking up, I did see, like, I want to say a lot of it was probably stimulus money. Like,
Definitely.
people, and then people were able to work at home. So it's like, you know what? I could probably breed snakes and or even those who were just getting pets. Like, I'm at home now, and I can do this job, and I can sit here and take care of snakes, and let's buy some stuff. And I started seeing a lot of stuff, and several really good shows, and then all of a sudden, like, the stimulus stopped and the sales stopped.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned earlier, having stuff from last year.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds like from the hearings through the grapevine is some of the bigger ball python guys and stuff are a little concerned because, sales have dropped off a lot, and now people have a ton of babies and no one's buying. And
yeah. I mean, I can see that. And a lot of it is, at some point, I think a lot of us that kind of get in want to be like the Nick Mutton, Will Banks, Bob Hart, those that do it as a full-time basis. I mean, heck, if you just go breed some snakes, sell some snakes, and they're able to do the podcast and don't really have to do nothing else, I mean, that's life right there. So we all aspire to do that. And the ball python market was very lucrative for many, many years. And, you get stuff that were morphs that, were kind of going the wayside until it was paired with the right other morph.
Yeah.
And Justin Kabilka has done a lot of that, was able to pair this into clown, and then you get this other gene, and wow, you get this incredible animal. Now everybody's got some of those ingredients, and it's like, only got 2 seasons away from being able to produce it. They produce, and then the next step. And now, man, if he can sell it for 15,000, I can sell it for 12,000. Yeah. And so you got an overabundance of these. And I'm just as bad. I mean, I've got a couple of clown projects, nowhere near that. I mean, I'm still working on like 2 gene clowns. But I wanted to make sure I had stuff that would actually be able to sell versus hold on to stuff forever.
Yeah. Well, that's something, I don't know. Me and Jake talked about it, I think on one of our one-on-ones a couple weeks ago. But like, I think it's given sort of the current economics things and stuff, like, are we going to see people not pair as much stuff next year because they still have things from this season, and does that mean there's going to become like, is there now going to be sort of a vacuum next year because everyone said, well, I'm not going to pair as much because no one's buying and I still have stuff from last year. But then it's going to sort of spring back in a way because now there's a vacuum and now people are looking for things that aren't there. Because that was sort of where I was at, was like, I didn't produce a ton this year. Like I didn't in comparison to other people, but I don't want to do as many pairings as I did this year. But at the same time, there's stuff that I wanted to pair this year that just didn't go, or for whatever reason didn't happen.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where it's like I'm hesitant because that very thing where it's like I'm gonna have all these babies, no one's gonna be interested in buying them. But at the same time, if a majority of people are gonna say I'm not gonna pair as much this season, like having the same mentality, is it wise to plan for that sort of vacuum effect to happen where like the supply and the demand is now offset?
I mean, I think it is. Anybody that's been in this market for a little while, it's very cyclical. You guys are in the Colubrids, Mexican Black Kings.
Yep.
Okay, you remember when they were probably $20 a piece, $35, and then somebody in Hong Kong wants them, and now they're almost $300 a piece. So people are looking like, man, these things are $300 a piece. Let me buy some, raise up, and then I'm gonna produce $300 a piece babies. Well, the market's done downturned by then.
Say in the next
So it's
3
the
years,
people that have held that long term and say, you know what, the market's down at $20. I'm not going to breed them this year. Then there becomes a shortage the following year. They've already got adults. Boom, they pair them up. They got 2 clutches. If the female double clutches. Right. And depending on how many females you have, well, these other people that were in it just for the money, they're not riding it out and being responsible about it. And that's why I probably bred a little bit more than I should have, but I also expected some of them not to go, so I paired stuff up. But like the Brisbanes, I already knew I had some babies left, and I didn't want to set on a whole. I could 2 clutches. That could have been an easy 40, 50 babies, and I just didn't want to sit on all of them. So I was like, I'm just not going to pair them up this year. Rockhampton sell pretty decent, so smaller carpet, better color. Paired those up, paired the caramels because everybody wants a good little project. The reds always kind of go. You don't really have to sit on them very long. And then if I do, that's just more holdbacks. Because it was already a project I was wanting to work on anyway.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think there's probably going to be some stuff I'll probably sit back and not breed next year, just because I kind of want to see how the market is.
Right.
But, when you got stuff that's like late season, say, for instance, the Brisbanes or, Colubrids, you can always push a little bit later. Like, okay, well, it looks like there might be something coming on. I can just go ahead and start pairing them up instead of in March. I can pair them up in May.
Right.
And may be able to get something that as this market, we're seeing it turn around. But it's crazy how a lot of it plays with politics, depending on who's in office. Are we going to get stimulus money? Is the unemployment rate going to go up or go down? Are people going to have jobs? I mean, I probably paid more for this house than I should have, but we needed to have a house. And actually, I think right now it's actually valued less than I owe for. But, it is what it is. It's mine now.
Yeah. Well, I think it's even more fragile for us because it's like it is a hobby, it is a luxury, it's not a necessity by any means. So it's like we'll be one of the first things with so many other things that people are like, well, I have the money, but I don't need to have a desert ghost, et cetera, whatever. And so that kind of puts things in kind of a weird position, but
I think that's where it comes in for niche markets. Like when I think of Baird's rats, I always think of you.
Oh,
because you posted a lot, you talked about them. Well, I mean, like I said, I've actually been cruising Morph Market looking for different Colubrid projects or something I may want to get into in the future, just because I mean, I see too many of these people at shows that have ball pythons. That's all they have. Like, as an investment opportunity, do not put on your eggs in one basket.
Right.
So I have some pythons. I have some ball pythons. I have carpet pythons.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have some colubrids. I kind of try to play the gamut. But whatever I have is something that I've produced. So at the end of the day, you can come back to the breeder and get the information you need.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So that's why I've kind of branched to doing a couple of different things. I really never thought I would do hog nose. Got Kenyan sand boas, rough scaled sand boas, and now the Saharan sand boas, the boas that actually lay eggs. I got a pair of those.
Yeah.
So, you know, smaller species that don't take up a lot of room.
Yeah.
Do have a little bit of market. And then just, you know, nationwide, there might be a whole lot of hognose for sale or even Kenyan sand boas, but at the local shows, not so much. And if I have one litter and they're small, they're not taking up a lot of space, I can actually afford to sit on them a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
And, you know, before they sell, you start getting, you know, bigger species, berms, retics that are getting cranked out like ridiculous that take up a lot of space. And if they don't sell within a year, you're already on a 6-foot animal.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and that's not a hatchling rack.
Right.
By any means anymore. So I think it's all about kind of finding niche markets. I'm just thankful for the people who have seen M-Pin carpets. I never expected it to be where it's at.
Yeah, it's got to be cool to see that though. Like,
I mean, it really is. I mean, I told my wife, I was on Instagram one day and I was like, I said, oh my gosh, I'm a hashtag. Like M-Pin is a hashtag. And I'm like, oh, I just blew my mind. Like, okay,
you made it.
I'm a hashtag.
You made it.
And no, it's just crazy because you just like, I'm just a guy that breeds carpets, man, cleans cages, deals in rats and, you know, snake crap, and then you produce a couple of nice animals. And to get the recognition, very thankful for the recognition, but that's not what I was looking for, you know.
Right.
But I think that's part of why it did so well, is like you didn't go into it with the intention of like, I'm gonna focus on these and make these a thing, and it's gonna, you know, one of those things where it's like, I just like the way these look and I'm gonna continue to try and make them look better, and by default everything else sort of falls in place with it, you know.
Yep.
Right.
So to backtrack, my first carpets, so there wasn't a whole lot of people looking at them back then, and there was a guy that I had met at show, done some business dealings with. He was getting out of green trees and jungles and trying to get into the ball python game. This is back when, you know, Mojave came in and they were $17,000 and stuff like this. So while he was building the ball pythons, he wanted to keep his name out there. So he would get some carpets from me. And I mean, I was getting like $75 a piece. He would put them on King Snake for $150. He would sell them. He'd send me the money, and or $75, $80, whatever I wanted off of it. He'd get another one or two and sell it. So it kept his name kind of in there. And so these were the original M-Pin carpets that was getting sold like really, really cheap as just a normal carpet, because in essence, that's what they were. It wasn't until they got older and more mature that those really nice ones really started to, you know, stand out. Or, you know, I go back to the forum days, you know, people were posting pictures, and I don't even remember. I never coined them M-Pin. It was, that was just my sign-on tag on the forums. And so it just stuck, M-Pin. You know, I've got people still to this day will see me in a show and they'll call me M-Pin because they know from way back in the days. They don't call me Michael Pennell. They call me M-Pin.
Yeah.
Or Min-Pin, you know.
Yeah.
So it's really nice just being able to be, you know, I've listened to a couple podcasts, listen to you guys, listen to Morelia Pythons when I'm, you know, traveling on to shows and stuff, and M-Pin will pop up, M-Pin will pop up. And I'm like, man, I mean, it's nice. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not like I'm blushing or nothing over here, but, you know, I mean, it's really nice to hear that your hard work's been paying off, and you didn't really look for it to be that way. Yeah. You know, you were just got those breeding snakes, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure, man. That's awesome. You know, you always want to be the guy, you know, you don't want to be the guy that names some snakes after you. You know, you want to be the guy that other people name snakes after
Well,
you.
that's the
You know
thing.
what I mean?
You
Like,
don't.
it's,
If you try to be the guy, you're not gonna be the guy.
no.
Well, it's crazy. Like I'll do shows and Jason Bromley will be there and people come talking about carpets and he'll be like, "You ever heard of M-Pin carpet?" And they're like, "Yeah." And he said, "That's the guy right there." I don't ever introduce myself that way.
Yeah.
Like somebody else will mention it and you're like, "Oh, that's you." And then it'll start a whole other conversation. But I don't know. I guess there's just virtue in being humble about it, you know?
Yeah.
Don't toot your own horn. Everybody else can do it enough for you.
Yeah. No, that's for sure,
Mhm.
man. Absolutely.
We are at the 2:15 mark. Where can people get a hold of you if they want to see what you got available or have any
You know,
questions?
and if they've been living under a rock and don't
Right.
already know.
If you don't know who M-Pen is.
Yeah. Right now, Python and a Pear Tree on Facebook business page. I do have a morph market and started to get some pictures posted up. Not everything that I have currently, but most everything I have pictures of. I just don't have enough stuff to put. Well, the payment setup I have on morph market only lets me do to a certain price range.
Mm-hmm.
Until stuff's sold or I move some stuff around, I can only post so much at a given time. I am looking at trying to do a web page. I'm not exactly computer literate. I can do it a little bit, but trying to do a web page and, create it and do all that other stuff, I'm kind of learning and going to try to set something up, at least to be able to put pictures and at least a place for people to go to. But right now it's going to be Morph Market, the Python and Pear Tree on Facebook, most of your local herp shows in the Texas, Louisiana area, NARBC Arlington, and through podcasts
Like this one.
like this one.
Like this one.
Yes, sir.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has definitely been a great one. Definitely one for the books. I've definitely enjoyed it, and I know.
Sorry it took so long.
Oh, man. I mean,
Yeah.
I
like, look, you
talk
guys
about
would have
Mike
probably,
coming on years ago, and it's like
it'd have probably been another day and be like, man, I'm busy that day. Sorry. But like, literally, I think when you hit me up, I was just sitting down for dinner or something. And I'm like, right down the phone. Yeah. Thursday. Thursday's great.
Yeah.
So it worked out great. I mean, yeah, any other time, man, I'm uh assuming it worked with the schedule. I mean, I had a blast. I mean, my wife's like, just go to the other room, talk snakes, have fun. Because it's not really her thing. She
Yeah.
comes to shows with me and stuff now, and enjoys the interaction I have and just the friendship that I have, with
Yeah.
people, different breeders, man. It's like your extended family. You see, you know, 15 times a year at shows or whatever, or like any RBC. Some of these, like when you showed up, and don't see you that often, but like, hey, man, sit down, chat, go out to dinner, whatever,
Yeah.
hang out
and
on the
just pick
couch.
up right where we left off, like nothing ever happened, like no time has been transpired. So.
Yeah, man. Well, I hope certainly one day in the coming future we can make it out there to come hang with you guys again. That'd
Yep.
be awesome, especially now
Stand
that things
jobs.
have progressed a lot more. We need to get out there. Smitty, we need to plan a herping trip out to Texas around Arlington. That would be a way to do it.
Yep.
Two birds, one stone.
That's right.
I don't know. May try to come to Daytona one of these days just to come visit.
Come on, man. That'd be
Been wanting
awesome.
to. Been wanting to.
Swampy Florida weather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do. I really appreciate it, guys. I really do.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. We appreciate you coming on and gracing us with your wisdom and your presence, man. It's been great.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, man.
This episode was brought to you by BlackBoxCages.com. Check them out. Facebook, Instagram, BlackBoxCages.com. And SteveSnaketuary.com. Get yourself some Venom hot sauce. Help a boy out. He's doing good stuff.
Great
and
stuff.
he can continue to do great stuff if you get his hot sauce. So give it a shot. We will be back for Snakes and Stogies on Monday. I know I said that last Thursday before last Thursday, and it didn't happen. But we can blame Phil for that. But we'll be back Monday, and we love you.
Yep. No THP next week because it's Thanksgiving, right?
Yes.
Yes. So no THP next week, but we'll be back.
No breaks.
No breaks.
Until the beatings will continue until morale improves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
No. So only got a couple more shows left in the year.
Yeah.
Usually like the last half of December or so we take that off. So this month is already flying by. It's crazy. So
yeah, it's nuts.
It's moving quick. But yes, we will be back Monday. We will see everybody later. Thank you.
Thank you.